Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Product Line Manager, Server Software, Apple Computer, Eric Zelinka.
Good afternoon. Welcome to session 801. My name is Eric Zelinka. I work in the product marketing group at Apple and responsible for server software. It's good to see a nice turnout here. How many of you were able to attend the keynote session this morning? After the keynote, we gave out this, Mac OS X Server, Jaguar, the developer preview. We're really pleased to get this into your hands. What we're here today to talk about is the Jaguar server, and specifically some of the new features and technologies that are included in the Jaguar server, and really what Apple's long-term direction for server software is, and some of the benefits of our technology and how you can take advantage of it and build applications for Mac OS X Server. So again, we'll be discussing Apple's server strategy, some of the new features in Jaguar server. We'll have some demos of some of the features. We'll discuss how Mac OS X Server is different from Mac OS X, specifically Jaguar server and Jaguar. And again, the developer opportunities, and leave plenty of time at the end for question and answer. So let's look back at the schedule. Where has Apple come? Really, where is Apple going to? It was only a year ago here at this conference, 2001 Developer Conference, that we released Mac OS X Server version 10.0. Since then, we've been pretty busy. In September, we came out with the 10.1 version and really focused on improving the performance, the reliability, and the scalability of the product. Today, we've released into your hands the developer preview version of Jaguar server. And later this summer, we're planning to ship Jaguar server to our customers. Well, where is Apple going with servers? When you think of Apple Computer, you don't normally think of Apple as a server company. Apple's goal with servers is to deliver innovative, scalable server solutions. We would really like our products to be the premier, high-performance, easy-to-use server for both the networking and internet solutions. We also think that we can use servers to improve the user experience. Let me talk about this for a second. If you think about it, servers play a really critical role in a network. You use servers for storing your email, maybe home directories, sharing files with other people, watching a video broadcast. Servers are accessing directory services. Servers really play a key role in the computing experience that we have on the Macintosh today. And it's Apple's philosophy that we can use servers to continue to improve the computing experience for Macintosh users. So a lot of the features that we've delivered in Jaguar server are meant to do just that, to continue to improve the the computing experience for Macintosh users. Before setting out to build Jaguar server, we came up with a couple goals. Number one goal is we wanted to use the server to make it easy to deploy and manage lots and lots of Mac OS X systems. We wanted to use the server to enable the perfect workgroup, as it were. Again, I mentioned we wanted to improve the computing experience, specifically for Macintosh users. We also wanted to integrate well with existing enterprise networks, and at the same time continue to deliver the best-of-breed internet and networking services. So what's new? Let me ask you a question. Who here has had a chance to install Jaguar server at lunchtime? No one? Okay. Well, if you would have installed Jaguar server, you would have noticed right up front some of the new features in the product. And we'll be talking about these today. First of all, we continue to optimize the server operating system. We've really placed a lot of importance on the network file services, specifically read and write performance. This is a key area that we're focusing on. Greater multiprocessor scalability for dual processor systems. We want to more efficiently take advantage of both of the processors that are there. And we also want to provide faster gigabit Ethernet support. In the keynote this morning, Steve mentioned that we are including a version of the Java virtual machine that's customized for server use. So this is useful if you're building WebObjects applications that you're hosting on the server, or you're deploying Java servlets or Java server pages with macOS and Server. The enhancements and the performance increases that we've done here will make it much faster for you to host Java server-side applications. Apple File Services are a core feature of the server. And again, we've continued to improve the performance and the scalability of the Apple File Services. Jaguar Server includes enhanced support for AFP home directories. We also introduced a new version of the protocol, version 3.1. The 3.1 protocol has a number of features to it, one of which we call Auto Reconnect. Auto Reconnect is a really great feature. If you are from a Jaguar client, if you mount a volume on from a Jaguar server, that volume is there on your desktop. And even if you don't interact with that volume very often, or you sleep your PowerBook and you wake your PowerBook back up, that volume is there. It's still there. You don't get the disconnect messages after long periods of inactivity. We've also added secure file sharing support to our server, allowing Macintosh clients, Jaguar clients, to securely connect to Jaguar servers. And this is an encrypted connection that we actually tunnel through SSH. We've had a lot of customer requests to make it possible to reshare NFS mounts using the server. So one of the other new features that we provide is NFS resharing. This has a number of NFS resharing via AFP. This has a number of benefits to users on a network. Not only can you use the AFP authentication services to provide stronger authentication for NFS, but you can also make NFS volumes available to other clients, such as macOS 9 clients who don't have an NFS client built into the operating system. And to support enterprise networks that have deployed Kerberos, we support Kerberos version 5 authentication. As you know, macOS 10 Server today provides print services for Macintosh, Windows, Unix, and Linux clients. We, again, continue to improve these print services. Jaguar Server has support for AppleTalk sharing, so we can now share these print queues via the AppleTalk protocol. So if you're on a macOS 10 machine, you can print to the server using AppleTalk. Also, if you're on a macOS 9 machine, the print queues show up in the chooser, and you can just print and LaserWriter 8 driver there in the chooser directly to the server. We also added support for print quotas. These are quotas that can be set up on a per user or a per printer basis. macOS 10 Server version 10.1 a year ago was the very first operating system we released that really had a unified directory services architecture. And directory services are really a way for storing and managing lots of different types of information. We use it for storing users, groups, and information, and also computer information. You could think of a directory service as a database of shared information that lives on a server or is even mirrored between multiple servers. Today we've announced Open Directory. So Steve mentioned it briefly during the keynote, but let's discuss it a little bit more. Open Directory is Apple's standards-based directory service architecture. It's an extensible architecture, and it allows for easy integration with enterprise directory services. Open Directory uses standards, such as LDAP and the SASL, for authentication, and it also has a wide variety of authentication methods, some of which are NT LAN Manager, CRAM MD5, and SHA-1. But there's a number of other authentication methods we support. And with Open Directory, you can have a shared name and password that lives on the network, and it allows you to go to a wide variety of computers on your network, log in against the central system, and access your resources, whether it be your home directory or file services or something else that's on the network. So today we're happy to announce that Apple is open sourcing or making it available to the open source community, Open Directory. Today we've posted the current implementation of Open Directory, the directory services, the LDAP version 2 plugin, NetInfo plugin, and our search policy plugin on the Darwin website. And when Jaguar releases, we're planning to open source a number of additional components of Open Directory, including our LDAP v3 read-write plugin, a BSD configuration file plugin for read access to files that are in /etc, and also a number of service discovery plugins. So this is kind of an architectural diagram of what Open Directory looks like. There's a couple different parts to Open Directory. One is what we call Open Directory Access. And Open Directory Access is really a mechanism for applications, maybe they're applications that run on the desktop or server-side applications, to call and access via single API, call and access data that lives on other directories, whether it be an LDAP directory, a NetInfo directory, or some other directory that you have a plugin for. Then there's the Open Directory Server. The Open Directory Server is something that's included in macOS X Server or Jaguar Server. And it provides support for LDAP and NetInfo clients. So via both the LDAP and NetInfo protocol, you can access data that's in Open Directory. And Open Directory has a shared database. So whether you're accessing, again, via NetInfo or the LDAP protocols, both requests are talking to the same database. So you can use an LDAP tool to modify data in the directory, or a NetInfo tool to modify data in the directory. It's all coming out of the same shared database. Another component of Open Directory is the password server. The password server provides secure password authentication and policy enforcement. So you may want, as a network administrator, you may want to set up various password policies, force users to change password at the next login, disable user accounts, enforce minimum password lengths, and maybe if there's users that are on your network that haven't logged in for a while, maybe you want to disable them as well. We support all these things in the password server. As I mentioned earlier, we want macOS X Server to enable the perfect macOS X workgroup. Well, how are we doing this? One of the ways is with something we call the Workgroup Manager. Workgroup Manager makes it easy to set up and manage users, groups, and computers. It allows you as a network administrator to control access to certain software and hardware features. And we've really designed this for both desktops and portables, so it's very flexible for deploying. Workgroup Manager allows for, when you set up a workgroup on the server, we actually create a groups directory. And your workgroup is part of this groups directory. And when you log into macOS X or Jaguar, it'll come up and ask you, which group do you want to be in? And you as a user have the option to say, I'm in this group. And it'll log you into that group, and you'll get all those preferences and permissions of that group. You could even use the Workgroup Manager to impose disk quotas on the server, controlling how much storage a user has on the server. So what types of things can you control with the Workgroup Manager? Again, I mentioned that the Workgroup Manager allows you to control users, groups, and computer lists. So those are the three data types that I can assign things to. And to each of these groups, each of these types, I can impose access policies for applications. Which applications can a user launch? I can control which system preferences are displayed. I have full access and full control over the classic system preferences. I can control media access. Can a user plug in a USB drive? Can they plug in a FireWire drive? Should it mount? What happens if a user puts a CD in? Do I allow them to burn? Do I allow them to mount the CD? I can even prevent them from ejecting a CD. I can control the display of the dock. Should it be on the right? Should it be on the left? Should it be on the bottom? What size should it be? What items should be in the dock? This is actually a really cool feature. You may have a work group, and you want to say everyone inside this work group has the same items in the dock. Oops. And I can put both applications and documents in the dock. I can have network control over Finder preferences, Finder commands, Internet preferences, login items. Login items is a nice thing. You may have a group, and every time a user logs into this group, you may want to have certain applications automatically launched. We can even control printers. Which printers are automatically assigned to computers? You can have a bunch of printers. Which printer is the default printer? I can control printing. Which printers can a user print to? Which can't they print to? And I can even require a level of administrator access to print to some types of printers. So if you have a very expensive printer, color printer, or an image setter printer, you may want to control who can access which printers. So to make all this stuff possible, we've built a couple different applications. One we call Server Manager, and it provides management and administration tools. I'll show you a little bit more in a second. And also a server status application for remote monitoring of the server activity. And that server status will be demonstrated a little bit more in the following presentation. And then the Workgroup Manager portion allows you to control workgroup preferences and policies and permissions. So let's have a demo of Server Manager and some of the workgroup management tools that we provide. Let's go to demo machine number 2. So this application here that I have launched is Server Manager. And if you notice this application here, I have control over accounts. So this is users' accounts, group accounts, and computer accounts. So if I click users, I can click groups. I can see various groups that are assigned to the server, even computers that are you want the server to manage. The key point here is that the data I'm administering from this application lives in the directory. Okay? So the directory could be a NetInfo server. It could be an LDAP server. It could be our Open Directory LDAP server. It could be an iPlanet server. It could be an Open LDAP server. It doesn't matter what the directory is. As long as we support it, I can, and I have write access into that directory, I can use these tools to administer the data in that directory. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new user account. And I'm just going to call this Austin, because that's my son's name. It's a good name. So I've set up a new user on the server. And I'm going to go into a couple of these tabs. And I'm going to say, when this user logs in, don't show the work groups. I can give this user a login shell. I can specify whether I want this user to get its password policies from the Open Directory password server. I can pick which groups this user should be in. Should they be in a math group? Should they be in an English group? Should they be in the sales group or the marketing group or the engineering group? I can set up where their home directory lives. I pick local. It's going to mean it's a local home directory local to this server. And I'm going to specify which directory their home directory will be created in. I can even use this interface to impose a disk quota on how much data the user can store in their home directory. And because I want to manage this user, I'm going to show you this in a little bit. I'm going to say that I want to put the user's preferences in the directory, and I'm going to control some of these preferences about the user. So let's go ahead and save this. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to this Preferences button, and with Austin still clicked, I'm going to set up some preferences. I'm going to go to the dock, and let's go to dock items. And I want to control what items appear in the user's dock when they log in. So I'm going to set these to manage always. I'm going to add calculator, and let's make this a little bit bigger. Text edit and mail and internet. Add a couple applications here. So I'll apply those. And let's go back and let's put the dock on the right. Okay. Now, when this user logs in, I want to have an application automatically launched. So I can go to this login items here, and I'm going to assign a certain application to launch. Let's just pick text edit, for example. We'll apply that, and I'll click done. I have a number of other features within this interface, some of which are implemented in this version of Jaguar Server, some of which are not. But I can control which applications the user can launch, which applications they can access. I can even control, I don't know if you can see this down here, whether they can launch applications that are on the local volume or not, or where they have to, or whether one application can sub-launch another application. I can also control which system preferences this user sees when they log into the computer. So there may be certain system preferences I don't want them to be able to administer themselves. And I also have control over media access. Again, I mentioned this earlier. What happens when they insert some form of removable media, whether it be a CD or a DVD or a USB drive or a FireWire drive, that type of thing. Okay, so let's, now that we have this done, make sure my settings are right here. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Demo 1 machine. On Demo 1 machine, here we go. So at the login window on Demo 1 machine, I see this user account called Austin, and I'm going to log in to that user. So again, this is a Jaguar desktop connecting to Jaguar Server, and the user's home directory lives on the server. So this is the first time this machine's ever connected to the server. And it's automatically gone and created a home directory for the user on the server. And you'll notice that those applications that we specified are in the dock, and I have text edit automatically launching. So that's very cool. So again, Workgroup Manager is all about creating the perfect macOS 10 workgroup and allowing system administrators to impose some level of restrictions and control on what the user can do. One of the challenges for us here is that as a network administrator, you may want to impose control and restrictions upon users so they don't screw up a machine. But at the same time, you want the user not to know that those restrictions are being imposed upon them. So you want to make a very smooth experience for them. So these are all challenges that we've had to deal with, but I think it works really well in the product. We're also announcing that Jaguar Server will support NetBoot for macOS 10. NetBoot, thank you. NetBoot allows you to really simplify the administration and reduce your support costs. With NetBoot, you can take an image and place it on the server. And this image contains the operating system and all the other configurations that a machine needs to boot. Think of it as the operating system for a machine. It lives on the server. And when you want to and all the machines on your network can boot off that image, that NetBoot image that lives on the server. So this is really nice because it allows you to standardize the deployment of machines across your network. When you want to update all the machines in your network, you don't have to go to each individual computer and update them. You can do them at one place. You update the image that lives on the server, and then simply restart the client, each of the computers, and they'll restart and load the brand new version of the operating system or the new updates off the network. Some of the new things that we've done with NetBoot, we now allow the server to host multiple images. The server can have multiple images on the server. And these images are actually now in disk copy format. So it's very easy to get in there and change the configurations if you need to. Thank you. NetBoot is primarily used for desktop computers. Because you are booting your operating system across the wire, it's primarily useful for desktop situations. But portable users can also use NetBoot. You can, as a network administrator, build a NetBoot image that lives on the network that maybe includes disk diagnostics tools and repair utilities. And when clients have problems, even if they're an iBook or a PowerBook user, they can simply plug in an Ethernet cable into the computer, restart off this NetBoot image that lives on the network, and now they can repair their local machine without modifying any of the data on their local machine. So NetBoot is a very useful tool. It's something that we think businesses and education environments should take a greater look at and start using and deploying on their networks. NetBoot, again, has a number of other benefits. You don't have to worry about a machine changing. Let's say a user maybe installed a virus on the machine or is launched some additional processes that are running on the machine. You don't have to worry about that. To get that machine back to a pristine state, you simply go to the machine and restart it, and it'll get the fresh, pristine image off the server. The next new service that we're introducing in Jaguar Server is called Network Install, or Net Install. And thank you. Network Install is an automated network software installation service, and it's great for installing or restoring or upgrading computers that live on your network. This is almost the perfect tool for OS migrations, for people moving from one OS to another. Basically, it works in a similar fashion to NetBoot. Actually, the base functionality is based upon NetBoot. You actually do boot off an image that lives on the network. But instead of booting into the Finder or booting into login window, Network Install boots you into an installer. And the installer is the macOS 10 installer that we have in Jaguar. And the installer can be configured for manual or automated installations. Basically, it works like this. You have an XML file that contains all the answers to all the questions the installer is going to ask, hopefully. And when you do the installer reads the XML file, and it says, OK, I agree, I agree, I agree, I agree. And at any point in there, it can come up and stop and require user interaction. So maybe it stops and says, OK, pick which disk you want to be installed onto, or whatever, at any point in there. And then it'll continue on and finish with the installation. And it actually runs through the installer, and it takes the macOS 10 packages and installs them onto the local disk. But what's great about Net Install is that you can take your own packages that you've built, and add to this image. And when it runs, it will install your packages on the local machine too. You could take your own custom scripts, scripts that you have that customize a machine. And you could build them into one of these packages that you place in this network install image and place that on your network. And again, because it's based on NetBoot, you can have multiple images that live on your network. So you can have one image for marketing, one image for sales, one image for a certain lab, one image for a certain group. You can also use Net Install to deploy software updates. Again, these images don't have to include the operating system. They can be just packages that you want to deploy internally. It could be a copy of Final Cut Pro, or it could be a software update. And by placing a software update as one of these images, now you can control which software updates get applied across throughout your environment. These could be Apple software updates. They could be your own software updates as well. But again, the purpose of Net Install is to make it easy to set up, administer, and manage lots and lots of macOS 10 machines. And again, the images are flexible, so you can customize them at will. macOS 10 Server includes Apache. The current version 10.1 today includes a version of Apache 1.3. We've again focused on system-wide performance throughout Jaguar Server, and we're roughly 4,800 connections per second using the WebBench 3 test. So that's pretty fast. That's enough performance to saturate about 3 or 4 T3 connections. In this release of Jaguar Server, in Jaguar Server, we're not planning to do administration of Apache 2. We are going to include Apache 2 on disk, but because Apache 2 is relatively new, we weren't able to build administration tools for it. So we're going to be focusing on administration of Apache 1.3 and including Apache 2.0 on disk. We've had a lot of customer requests to improve the capabilities of our mail server. And this is something that we continue to do. We've been making it more reliable and more robust. We've been focusing on relay restrictions, SMTP relay restrictions to prevent junk mail or spam mail. In Jaguar Server, we're introducing SSL IMAP support. So you can actually encrypt the connections that are going between the client and the server, so no one can run a packet analyzer on your network and see the data going back and forth between the client and the server. We also have added support for storage quotas. So you can say that this user can only store a certain amount of mail on the server. We'll be introducing a webmail service with Jaguar Server. It's a standards-based webmail that's written in PHP. Supports the IMAP and SMTP protocols. I think one of the greatest things about it is it's pure HTML 4.0, so there's no JavaScript. So it has maximum compatibility with all the browsers that are out there. You can access it with a browser or portable PDA, and includes rich MIME support, address books, folder manipulation. One of the things that we try to do with macOS X Server is provide a number of high availability services. And as you know, with the current version of the product, we have some high availability services that are designed to really maximize the server uptime. One of the new features that we're introducing in Jaguar Server is what we call IP failover. This allows you to have two servers, one IP address on one machine and one IP address on the second machine. And when one server fails, if it were to fail, the other computer will take over its IP address. And then when the server comes back up, it'll gracefully hand the IP address back. So we support one-way failover and also two-way failover. This is a really interesting service. Today, we really recommend it for read-only services that have minimal replication needs. It can be a challenge sometimes to get the back-end data store to synchronize. And also another thing, we do support email notifications of the entire failover and failback process. So you can get notifications on a pager or sent out to email that a certain computer went down and that it's now come back up, or that one server has taken over the IP address for another on your network. Again, this is great for read-only data, such as DNS servers or caching proxy servers, static websites, QuickTime streaming servers that are broadcasting data, or other services where replication in the back end storage isn't key. I mentioned earlier that I wanted to spend some time discussing the differences between Jaguar Server and Jaguar, just to make it clear what we're doing. Because at the heart, we have one operating system, but we really have two different versions of the operating system. And we're trying to design macOS X Server to be just that, a great server. So here's just some of the differences. We don't, focus on classic support. That's something that we just don't do in the server. And again, in this slide shows we've really optimized the core operating system, the Java VM and the core operating system for server use. We include high availability services that the desktop doesn't. Again, designed for highest availability of your servers. So we have hardware reboot, auto service restart with the Watchdog daemon, and now IP failover. In the server, we also focus on remote administration and monitoring. You want to remotely from your desktop computer look at the server, see what the state of it is, get a status information. How are the services doing? How much load is my server taking? The server does log archiving. We do compression and moving of logs periodically. We're also doing drive space monitoring. So When the drive gets too full, we can send out notifications to the administrator letting them know of that. As you saw in the demo, the server really focuses on account management. So we manage user accounts, group accounts, computer lists, long names, long passwords, home directory administration, quotas. These are all things that are unique to the server. And directory and authentication services. Jaguar Server includes the Open Directory server. We have the password server for the password policies. And both Jaguar and Jaguar Server include LV3 clients, NetInfo clients, and can read data from BSD configuration files that are stored in /etc. So let's talk a little bit about developing for Mac OS X Server. It's great that Apple has all these features in the product, but how do you as a developer build a product and take advantage of Mac OS X Server and ultimately make money? Well, first of all, why would I build a product for Mac OS X Server versus Mac OS X? Well, you design your product for Mac OS X Server if your product is designed to be a network resource. You need absolute maximum reliability, and it's not really an end-user application. It can be something that lives on the server. Maybe clients access it, but it's really designed to be something that lives on a server. So it doesn't have to run without a logged-in user. It might be a BSD process, for example. You would also develop for Mac OS X Server if your product can take advantage of some of the other services of the server, maybe some of the network file services, or you need to take advantage of some of the high availability features that we have with the watchdog and IP failover. So why develop for Mac OS X Server? Apple is committed to servers. This wasn't always true in the past. If many of you have been in the Apple community for several years, you look at the statement, Apple is committed to servers, and you're like, okay, I don't really believe it. Apple's been down the server road before. Apple's had server products and never really gone anywhere with them. And I think things are changing. You can see that with Mac OS X Server today. You can see that with the release of Jaguar Server to you in your hands today. Also, the announcement at the keynote today about the future of our server hardware. So Apple is truly committed to servers. We feel that servers can be used to, again, build the perfect workgroups. Servers are used to help us integrate with enterprise networks. And we are using servers as infrastructure to make it easier to manage, administer, deploy Mac OS X systems. Again, Mac OS X Server is specifically designed to be a server operating system. Again, we have one operating system, two different versions, Mac OS X, Mac OS X Server. So this is a growing market. Apple's getting into the server market more and more. And we have this motto, 5% down, 95% to go. And we really believe that. We believe that we can grow this market. And going down the server path is one way that we can do that. So this is a growth market for us. And we recommend that you as a developer come on board and build products for Mac OS X Server. And as Steve mentioned at the keynote earlier today, Apple will become will become the largest distributor of Unix. So we are out there. We are shipping more systems with Unix on them than any other vendor. So what are some developer opportunities for you? Well, let's break them down. In the server management and administrative category, there's a lot of opportunities. There's log analysis, reporting, and history. There's a lot of services in Mac OS X Server. And it would be great if a third party such as yourself were to build log analysis applications to parse through that data and provide good reports. In the server monitoring administration area, we also have SNMP support. So you could build a MIB for the product, and that would work as well. And backup and restore. Backup, we've got a number of third parties that have come to the platform providing backup solutions, but we want even more. As a developer, you could build a middleware application. It could be a Apache module, a web service that you host, web objects applications. Anyone who's doing development with web objects. You should take advantage of the server to deploy those server-side applications. Also database access, accessing databases. There's room for additional network file services. There's network file services that we do not do. And also local file services. The sessions this week talk about the great file system architecture that we have and how you can build your own custom file services. Do things like journaling and software RAID and that type. Also, logical volume management, replication between disks. There's a lot of opportunities. You build a high-end professional print solution, a RIP that you send a job off to, and it rips it out to a printer or does color separations. Print job accounting. There's also a really growing market for Apple is in SciTech with distributed computing. Computational clusters, render farms. These are all great areas for you to come to the platform and bring your products over. In the Open Directory category, you could build an Open Directory Access plugin. You could build a plugin for NIS and NIS Plus. Novell eDirectory has a number of LDAP v3 extensions. You could build a plugin for that. You could build an Open Directory Access plugin that does on-the-fly schema translation. Or it may be a custom directory that you have deployed at your site. You might build a site-specific directory service plugin. And again, you could build a Open Directory administration tool, something that calls into Open Directory that administers data that lives in a directory. We're doing that with our Server Manager application. You could build a similar application. I'll tell you a quick story for a second. I was able to take Web Objects 5.1 today with no code, point it at an LDAP server, and Web Objects on the fly built me an entire user interface of the data that lived in this LDAP server. And I had full access, because I had write access into it, I had full ability to create new records, edit records, delete records, and that's with no code. So as a developer writing code, it's amazing it's amazing all the tools that you'll be able to build with this technology. Also, there's some server hardware solutions, RAID, storage arrays, UPS, and backup devices. These are things that can be across the platform. So the rest of the week, there's a number of sessions that I really encourage you to attend if you're interested in finding more out about what we're doing with macOS on Server. Following this session here, 801, in this same room, we'll have a session called macOS on Server in Depth. And engineers will be up here and they'll be talking in great detail about some of the new capabilities that we provide in Jaguar Server. On Thursday, there'll be a session called NetBoot and Network Install. If you're interested in finding out how you can configure or take advantage of these services, please attend that session. Also, if you have an application and your application you'd like to support NetBoot with your application, that would be a good session to attend. Thursday, 8:13, Directory Services. You'll find out more about Open Directory, how to build an Open Directory Access plugin. Also, find out more about the Open Directory Server. Session 8:14, Kerberos and macOS 10 on Thursday. Talk more about what we're doing with Kerberos on the platform. Also, some of the new Kerberos features that we have in Jaguar Server. Friday, 8:15, Developing for the Managed Desktop. This is where you can find out how to build a product that takes advantage of Workgroup Manager and how to make sure your product is compatible with that so you don't have any conflicts. And then, of course, we have the server feedback session on Friday. So if you have information, if you have questions and wondering who to contact at Apple for more information, Tom Wire, he's in Developer Relations, Networking Communications Evangelist, or you can contact myself. And there's our email addresses. There's the server feedback session again on Friday. And there's an email address that we have called server-feedback@apple.com. So if there's feedback that you want to get, send to us about the server, and you're not able to attend the feedback session on Friday, please send it to that email address. We have some more information about macOS and Server, specifically Jaguar Server. Let's see here. If you have your copy of Jaguar Server, there's 2 CDs inside here. On the second CD is entitled Admin Tools, and there's a very large PDF in there that is it's a beta or draft version of the documentation that we're planning to provide with Jaguar Server when it releases. So if you have questions about some of the services or how to set them up and how to deploy them, or you need more information, take a look at the PDF that's included on the Admin Tools CD. Also take a look at the macOS and Server website. There's a lot of documentation up there, information about NetInfo, LDAP support, and integrating with Active Directory. And also take a look at the open source website for Darwin, Darwin Server, and Open Directory. So that concludes the presentation.